So I think this merits a deeper look into the notion of Islamophobia in America today. And to help me take that deeper look, I'm joined now by Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. Carol is also the author of Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise. And here in studio, I have Imam Abdul Ali Musa, director of the Masjid al-Islam Islamic Center here in Washington, D.C. Thank you both for being here. And let's just start with the report that we just saw. In the end, our correspondent, Anastasia Churkina, makes the comparison of Islamophobia to anti-Japanese sentiment after Pearl Harbor. Some have also compared it to McCarthyism. Imam, I'll start with you. Do you think that that is a fair comparison?
No, I think this is more like Hitlerism with Jews in Germany in the 1930s. The way Muslims are being treated, the way justification is made to spy on Muslims all over the United States, to allow entrapment and what have you, and a general open harassment of Muslims is worse than McCarthyism. It is more like Nazism, because there's a state of fear that exists in the Muslim community today.
Carol, I want to get your response to that. Do you think that Islamophobia here in America, first of all, is alive and well, and do you think it can be compared to Nazism?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. I disagree with the slant of the newscast. I think that there are some Americans that are concerned about Islam, radical Islam, but I don't see hatred of Muslims. There are far more acts of anti-Semitism than there are acts of violence against anyone in the Muslim community. And I believe that Americans see what's happening in Europe and that they are rightly concerned. We have to be able to talk about this without being labeled as haters and racists or whatever other epithet that you want to throw out.
Then, Carol, let me ask you this. When we saw, for example, the mass protest that came out against the mosque near Ground Zero, the Islamic Center there, as well as these hearings on Capitol Hill, you don't think that there was an element of hatred in any of those things?
No, I think that Peter King was doing his responsibility by conducting the hearings. There's been something like 20% of black prisoners that have converted to Islam. We know that Al-Qaeda is recruiting American citizens, U.S.-born citizens, to commit terrorist activities. And so Peter King's hearing, I think that's Congress doing its job. And with the Ground Zero Mosque, I think it was inappropriate to seek to place a mosque so close to the site of that tragedy. It was poor judgment on the part of some organizers in the Muslim community. I believe Americans would be less afraid if more Muslim leaders would come out and condemn violence, condemn anti-Semitism, and show that they really want to be Americans, they don't want Sharia law in the U.S., that they realize that we can only have one America.
Imam, you're a Muslim leader in this community. Do you think it's your responsibility to come and do that?
Well, let me explain a few things. The sisters, I think, totally misguided on many issues. The first issue relates to Muslims in prison. Of course, I did a little time in prison myself. I accepted true Islam while I was in prison. And
were you recruited by Al-Qaeda while you were in prison?
Islam changed me, transformation, from one of the main drug dealers in Northern California, multi-million-dollar operation, from a drug dealer going down to Colombia and starting to bring back drugs myself, even after being hassled here. From that to Islam, to trying to help raise humanity to a higher level, to stop trying to create wars around the world. The other thing is that Islam is transforming not only individuals' lives, but say the black community itself. There's no program in the federal, state, and local governments that can even approach the reformative aspect of Islam in prisons. For the government to hassle prisoners who are trying to change, who need a strong tonic, a strong medicinal process to help lift them out of crime, we believe that's Islam. There's another issue on the attitude of Muslims. Just this last weekend, September the 10th, there's a program, United We Stand. These are all prominent Muslims, one nation, one destiny. With all of the Islamophobia, with many of these people being arrested and challenged, they had a big program here in Washington, D.C. called United We Stand, One Nation. Look at here. And if you were to read it, you would see that they're saying one nation, one destiny. You know, this is an old revolutionary called United We Stand, Divided We Fall. With all of that oppression, the Muslims are going out of their way, I mean, bending over backwards to say, let's all work together. We are human beings. There's one more program. This one is called In God We Trust. This is a program. What I'm trying to say is everybody knows that this is on the money in America. These are all American ideals, and the Muslims are breaking their back, trying to cooperate with these dictators like Peter King and these.
Well, let me go back to Carol, because I don't think that Carol Swain is saying that you and others, that all Muslims are bad, but I think that she is saying, and Carol, answer me this, I mean, you're saying that there needs to be some sort of closer look taken at the Muslim community. Is that correct?
No, I think the Muslim community needs to, well, they're acknowledging that there's a public relations problem, but it would be very helpful if some of the Muslim leaders, instead of calling people that criticize Islam haters and Nazis and whatever they want to call them, they need to try to bridge differences and condemn some of the violence and not take such extremist rhetoric. I think the tone of this program sends the wrong signal. I'm more concerned about anti-Semitism because it is growing. If you look at the FBI hate crime statistics, it's the Jews in America and in parts of the world that are really running for their lives. They're the ones that's being threatened. I'd like to see us condemn that. We have to have a society where we can talk about Islam, the threat of radical Islam, the recruitment of black young people in prison. I've had relatives recruited that came out hating white people. That cannot be good for society. We need to be able to talk about these things without being called names.
The biggest demonstration for Muslims in America was 1993. It was Muslims spearheaded a move to help protect Bosnia. Bosnians are all white. This racial hatred, this is all Muslims. It was spearheaded by the Pakistani community and the black community. We led it. We did all the security and footwork. We protected, we were trying to protect people who were being slaughtered in Europe. They were white people. And our massages and our centers, Jews are not, wait just a minute, let me explain something. To say the Jews are having anti-Semitism is a big problem in the U.S. would say
it's
that
all over the world.
Yes, but if you have the New York Times, if you have media outlets all over the world, if you have Hollywood going your way, you would have to live as a Muslim. You would have to live as a Muslim. You would have to be stopped in the airports. You would have to be jailed and drugged down the street, because I've had it all happen to me recently. I'm trying to tell you that Muslims are the ones that are being oppressed today in the United States of America. There's no evidence because you haven't left your house, young lady. You've been in the house all the time to say that we hate oppression. Don't nobody like to have.
Let me get a final word from Carol. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Carol, what was that you were just saying?
That we all hate oppression, and I think that the Muslim community in America, that people are reaching out to them. There's a mosque in my neighborhood. They've never had any problems. I've been on TV shows with some of the people from there, and I know that the problem, I believe, is the Muslim community. There's not enough leaders that are standing up condemning violence and telling young people not to hate white people, not to hate people. Non-Muslims.
Certainly, I could go on with this discussion for a much longer time. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but as you both said, it is important that we are talking about it, and that's what we're doing here with Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University and the author of the book Be the People, and also Imam Abdul Ali Musa, the director of the Masjid al-Islam Temple here in Washington.